Hi, it's Ashley, and now we're going to talk about how to prepare the foods from your fresh produce box. To start, you want to make sure that you are washing your produce thoroughly. And the reason for doing that is to make sure that there is no residual dirt or debris left on your produce. So let's start that. All right, so now our produce has been thoroughly cleaned and we're ready to eat. Kind of. But first, we want to make sure that we are chopping and preparing everything into smaller portions so that we can put them into the various dishes that I'm going to show you shortly. So starting with our cucumber, like in the last video, you want to make sure that you are cutting off the ends of this vegetable here. And of course, I'm an advocate for composting, so you can simply just take those ends, put it into a bowl, and prepare it for your compost. And next we have our asparagus. And remember in the last video, I showed you a very simple way of chopping this, but if you don't want to break it, I'm going to show you how to cut it. So we're just going to find that part where they split, and I just broke it for you. So that's how you break it. It's not very hard, but you're going to take this portion, throw that into the compost, and begin to slice it the way you want to. And now we're going into the southern delicacy that is not so exclusive to the South, the okra. And what we are going to do is simply just chop off this top portion of the okra and throw it right into our compost bowl. And we can simply just slice it into smaller pieces, just like this. All right, next we're going to go into our tomato. With the tomatoes, you'll find that it can get kind of messy, but if you're like me, you like to taste things along the way, and so that's not going to be a problem. But there's not much to cut, to get rid of with this tomato. But I will say it's probably best to just take off this small top on top of the tomato and put it into your compost, of course. So because this tomato is, these are fairly big, I'm actually just going to have these slices to make them a bit smaller. It's not very hard to do. So now we're going to go into our squash. This specifically is a zucchini, also known as a green squash. And one way that you want to prepare this, as I covered in the last video, is by simply slicing off the top here where this stem was on this vegetable. So what we're going to do is just go down the side just like that and put this into our compost bowl and begin to just slice it into smaller parts. And now we go into our yellow squash, which is going to be prepared the exact same way as the zucchini. We're going to cut off this portion here. And I think I forgot to mention for the zucchini, I actually cut off this portion at the bottom as well. So one thing I do want to point out about the squash that differs from the zucchini is that this is kind of irregular shaped. And so because of that, you're going to get bigger slices. So what I like to do is just simply cut those slices in half to make them smaller. And there you have it. All of the produce has been chopped and is ready to be prepared. And now we're going to talk about how to prepare an oven fried dish. In this case, I've got some squash, zucchini, and okra that I will be preparing. So to start, as you recall, I chopped up the squash, zucchini, and okra into smaller parts. And what we're gonna do is take some of these ingredients, very simply, mix it all together, add it onto a pan, and throw it into the oven. And I'm gonna walk you step by step on how to do that. So we've got our produce in a bowl. We've got a bit of olive oil, a few tablespoons here. We've got a mixture of seasonings, a no salt seasoning mixed with a little bit of garlic powder. And we also have some breadcrumbs. So you might be wondering, what are the breadcrumbs for? The breadcrumbs are actually going to give the produce a nice crispy, crunchy flavor after they're oven fried. And I'm so excited to show you how it's going to look afterwards. So to begin, we're just going to simply throw in a little bit of olive oil. And next we've got our seasoning combo here. And I want to mix that in with the breadcrumbs so that everything is equally distributed onto the sliced vegetables. And we're going to just sprinkle that right here and mix it all together. And you don't have to worry about oiling or greasing your pan because the oils from the vegetables will keep it from sticking. And just like that, we're done. So let's add this onto the pan. I want to just spread it apart so that everything can cook equally. Add all of those breadcrumbs to it for that yummy goodness. And we're going to take this and put it into the oven. Now I preheated the oven to 450, and what we're going to do is actually stick it in there and allow it to cook between 25 to 35 minutes. But depending on how fast your oven cooks your food, you want to check on this periodically, and I would say around the 15-minute mark. So that's it. Let's go and stick it in. In this segment, we're going to talk about how to prepare our produce in a marinated way. So what we're going to do is take the vegetables that we've chopped up previously, and we're going to jumble it all together, and I'm going to show you some delicious seasonings and flavorings on how to create the perfect marinated dish. Here we have some cucumbers. We're just going to throw that into the bowl. We've also got our asparagus that we've chopped up into smaller parts. We have our tomatoes, which are juicy and ripe and flavorful. We also have some leftover zucchini, which is going to be perfect with this. And we've got some squash that's been cut in quarters that we're just going to simply jumble together. So before we go into mixing it, we want to flavor this, right? So I'm going to talk about the different flavors and seasonings that we can add to this dish to make it delicious. Right here, we've got a few tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil that we're just going to sprinkle on top or drizzle on top. We also have a few teaspoons of lemon juice that we're also going to drizzle right here. I've got some freshly minced garlic that I'm going to throw on top. You can actually either use a bunch if you like garlic like me, or you can just take a little teaspoon or so, or two, and add that to your bowl. And next we've got a little combo of seasoning, which comprises of black pepper, a dash of salt, and maybe some herbs if you'd like. And we're just going to sprinkle that nicely on top. And there you've got that. And now we're just going to go and mix all of these things together so that everything is equally seasoned. And there you have it. Very simple. Now what we're going to do is actually cover this with either some plastic wrap or a lid for your bowl. And we're going to sit that into the refrigerator. Now, if you're like me, you want to eat it right away. But I definitely recommend you waiting a few hours before consuming it and you can even wait up to 2 days. The longer you wait, the more flavorful it is. And in this segment, we're going to talk about how to steam some of the produce from your food box. As you can see here, we've got our squash and our zucchini that we're going to be throwing into the steamer. And I must say, this is one of the quickest and easiest meals to prepare, and it's delicious as well. So let me show you exactly how to prepare this. One thing you want to do is, if you can, preheat your stovetop so that you can expedite the steaming process and you don't have to wait for the water to start to heat up. So we've got our pan or our pot with about 2 inches of water at the bottom, and we also have a steamer here that we're going to put our vegetables into so that it's not necessarily touching the water. So before we throw our produce into the pot, we want to add some good old seasonings to it. Right here, I've got a nice no salt blend with a bit of pepper and garlic powder. You can actually use whatever you'd like and however you desire to flavor your vegetables. But I'm just going to sprinkle just a little bit here. Got my spoon. I'm going to mix that around. And what's going to happen is once you steam it, all of these flavors are going to get into those vegetables and it's going to be absolutely delicious. Now we're going to toss it right here into the steamer. Okay. So now that our vegetables are inside of the steamer, we're going to take the lid, just simply place it on top, wait for about 10 or so minutes, allow that to cook and steam nicely. And once it's complete, it'll be nice and tender. You're going to put that onto a plate. And if you want to enhance the flavors just a bit more, add a splash of lemon and you're good to go.